Good afternoon. So with the weather warming up, wanted to do a quick video on some of the preparations that I do um, with the tropicals, just preparing them for summer and then also giving them kind of a good head start. But today though, I wanted to talk about foliar feeding, giving a good supplemental feeding to your trees, as well as my pruning practice. And also, more importantly, this is something that really not a whole lot of people talk about, but it is going to be structural support. Yeah, kind of a big deal. So, starting off with the topic of structural support. In my case, I use ropes and twines when possible. As you can see, I mean, practically everything that you see here is roped or twined. Um, so when you get a tree from a nursery, okay, this is most commonly what's going to happen. Actually, if you come here, let me kind of give you a quick demonstration. Almost always, the nurseries, they have a supporting stake. And then what they do is they actually, unfortunately, because the tree is young and it can't really hold itself, because it's either an old layer or grafted unit, they have the stake literally tied to the tree, the trunk of the tree, like just like this, which is fine. However, the problem is you're really not giving the tree a chance to uh, straighten itself out on its own. So for this particular reason, I prefer to use ropes, which essentially, if you look at it, it essentially pulls the trees straight up, right, giving them a chance to kind of fight against gravity and harden the branches on its own naturally. And in my case, because of the limited amount of space that I've got here, I keep most of my trees vertical, as in just straight up. I prefer the trees to be tall rather than bushy, just again because of lack of space. Uh, and this works for me. In your case, if you got plenty of space, yeah, keep your trees bushy if you need to. So the ropes and the twines that I get, these are like $1 a piece. I want to say these are $3, $4. Stop by your local Dollar Tree or your local 99-cent store. But that's what I use. One tip when using the ropes and twines, try to make more of a loop instead of a noose. Just because what's going to happen is if you leave this on for too long and you forget about it, it actually may choke the tree. And what happens is the tree will actually grow around the rope or the twine, essentially eating it up. Um, yeah, I don't think I have any examples to show you, but yeah, give it plenty of clearance. In fact, it probably would not be a bad idea to kind of move these around from time to time, so that way the tree is not, it's not choking the tree. Um, and now the twine, specific to the twines, as you can see, I mean, I use twines quite a bit just because they're dirt cheap, uh, and they are actually quite strong. The reason why I use twines is these eventually will break down in generally a year or so, which is plenty of time for these trees to be straightened out by then. So this is really all temporary, and these are biodegradable. So once they break down, I just cut them and leave them on the ground to essentially become mulch. So so that's supporting structural support for you. So now, if you are getting an air-layered or grafted tree, they're likely going to require a lot of structural support. Mangoes especially, these guys are just so limpy when getting a grafted variety. These are just, yeah, they need a lot of structural support. So that's that. So now the next topic is pruning. Most trees will appreciate some form of pruning, particularly when right after winter. So here, a good example, okay? Mango here. As you can see, it is waking up. There's some new growth here, new growth there. It literally is starting to bud out. However, right after winter, this gives me a good opportunity to see which branches are dead, which branches succumb to the frost, and which ones I need to leave alone. So here is a really, really good example. This branch obviously is dead. However, not all the branches dead. It's really only up to this point that's dead, because this is still very much green. So that being the case, I'm gonna go and just cut out the dead piece. So as with all pruning shears, you're gonna want to disinfect it using some kind of a alcohol solution. I already went in and do that here, so I'm comfortable with just pruning it outright. So I'm gonna go and just prune the section that I believe to be dead. So yeah, this is dead. So yep, which would result in this particular branch shooting new growth basically from the tip of it. Same with this upper level here. Gonna go and just cut it off there, leave that one there. What's gonna happen is all these, because the branch is still very much alive, all these dead leaves, either, I mean, I could cut them, or I could just leave them alone and they naturally will fall out. So pruning, really, the majority of my pruning occurs right around the time when I see new growth. Just because at this point, at this stage, I still don't know which trees are, um, which which parts of the trees are still alive and which ones need to be cut off. Let me see if I can show you a good example. Let's see. So, well, I guess if you come here, this is probably the best one I have for you. Oh, right here. And a llama tree. This guy does this every year. Still not waking up yet, but he is very much alive. So that being the case, I mean, I can't tell what branch is dead and what branch is still alive. So I'm going to go and just leave him alone until I see new growth, and then start pruning it after I see new growth. Same with the red Israel atomoya here. I mean, short of scratching the branches that I suspect are still alive, which I prefer not to, I'm just going to wait out. I'm just going to wait until it gets a chance to start growing out, then perform the pruning that way. So yeah, I mean, even though this is like hot, it's looking at the temperature there, it is 102 as of this moment with the sun directly on it. So it's hot, and yet some of these trees are not quite waking up yet. But yeah, some of these trees, they generally wake up right around May. So that's why I've got them out here. So now, if you've noticed, Sornam cherry, I mean, I at one point pruned this heavily. This tree was becoming a bit too bushy, so I pruned it heavily, and I'm turning it more to a tree. Just because at one point, I mean, the branches were like way out here. So let's see what else. One thing about pruning, and this is entirely up to you, but let me show you. This really mostly applies to mangoes, but actually if you come here, see the leaves? Think of this as being basically their version of frost damage, frostbite. So in my case, what I do, just to make it look nicer, you sanitize it first, of course, is I actually simply just cut out the dead parts. It overall just it doesn't really help the tree that much. It really, in my opinion, just makes it look nicer, because what's going to happen is all these leaves, the tree will eventually drop. But until that happens, I mean, it just looks nicer. So this is purely aesthetics. It really does not help the tree at all. But yeah, it's essentially, you know, you're cutting out the frost-bitten section, and this does not hurt the tree at all. Again, these foliage will be dropped eventually by the tree, and new one out to take their place. So see, much nicer. So that's mostly what mangoes. All right, so that is pruning. Now there are some trees that you really don't prune at all, like ever. Well, you let me rephrase that. You should not have to. Um, Examples are citrus. You actually normally you should not prune a citrus tree, just because citrus naturally, these guys are more like a lollipop, where they've got that lollipop shape on the top, which would result in the foliage, the branches shading the main trunk. I mean, if you look at it, this is all shaded. This is the tree's natural mechanism to keep itself nice and cool. So citrus, yeah, I don't even touch these guys. The only things that I do to them are really just give them some structural support. But in terms of pruning, I don't even touch them. Uh, Here's another really good example. Mandarin. Yeah, I mean, yeah, these guys are more lollipop shaped. So I don't prune them at all. Again, the only thing I do is give them some structural support here and there. But besides that, I leave these guys alone. They have no problem producing fruits for you. The next one is actually going to be the longans. Longans, you really do not need to prune. Um, I say that just because the only times that you really make any incision to the longan tree is when you're picking the fruits. Because what's going to happen is, if you notice, at one point there was a branch that had fruits on top of it. This is when I cut it off. So that's really the only time that I prune a longan tree, is literally to cut out the branch with the fruits attached to it. So that in many ways is your form of pruning. But yeah, this year I kind of went all out in citrus. I mean, yeah, looks good. So that's pruning for you. Now, for the most part, just a general rule of thumb when pruning trees, take out the branches that are facing downwards. Instead, you should really only want to keep the branches that are going upwards. And really just use your judgment when taking out the branches. For example, this tropical pink guava here. At one point, as you can see, I pruned this heavily. However, what it's going to want to do is it's going to want to try to branch out to replace the ones that I pruned out. So in this case, I would much prefer it to be bare like this. So that way there's some sunlight hitting the trees behind it. So in this case, just really just pluck them out, take out the new growth. And doing so, this really denies the tree the option to branch out any further, and instead just focus on the growth that is on the top, which is how I would much prefer this guy to be. So yeah, that's essentially all you're doing. And you might have to do this several times, but eventually the tree will get the message telling them that, hey, don't focus on the growth down here, just instead just focus on the growth near the top. That's essentially what you're doing. So yeah, not much to it, just really just pluck them out. So that's a gist of pruning. So yeah, again, just structural support. Okay, just yeah, I've been a huge fan of these twines. You know, put some stakes here and there, and then just kind of really using the force of the twines, kind of um, tie them and putting in some pressure on it, and therefore eventually straightening them out, including the lateral branches. Again, I do want everything to be kind of going vertical, more like a shape of a tree. So, so that's pruning and structural support. Um, Again, this is all temporary. Once the trees are matured, yeah, you're good. Like the Inga there, and also the well, and also the hut behind you, the Jamun behind you. Yeah, you really do not need to provide with any structural support anymore once they get to the size. Now that said, I do have. I'm actually using it in some ways to provide structural support for the other trees, and I've got ropes here and there tying to it. All right, so the next one I want to talk about is going to be feeding. So this is a process that you're probably going to get dirty and stinky, and I generally like to do this usually in the morning or late towards the evening when the weather is cooler. So what the idea of foliar feeding, really the best temperature to do it would be right around 80 or 85. So this really in the morning presents the perfect opportunity, as well as the late towards the late evening when the pores of the foliage of the trees are open just right at the optimal level. So the whole idea behind foliar feeding, in addition, is it's a supplement. In addition to your granular feeding, which you should be doing, you know, 3 times a year. So in addition to doing this, what I do to make sure my plants are the healthiest that they can be. Side topic, a quick tip for granular feeding stuff. Don't stop by your big box store. Stop by like your grocery store or even like Big Lots. On rare occasions when things are going out of season, they're like 50, 75% off. So just, yeah, just a tip. Um, yeah, that's why I've got bags and bags of them. Going back to foliar feeding. Foliar feeding is a supplement. Your tree likely will not be able to obtain the nutrient alone through foliar feeding. So you're gonna want to do this as a supplement. It's a lot like taking your vitamins in addition to the your regular normal food intake. But the cool thing with foliar feeding is it gives a tree a quick amount of nutrient and energy, whereas with granular feeding, I mean, it you could wait till like weeks and even months before the nutrient is made available to the tree. With foliar feeding, you're talking matter of days, so quick and easy. Now, the liquid fertilizer that I use for the concoction is basically just anything I can find. Any liquid organ fertilizer will do. So, in addition to the macronutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, hence the numbers up here, 362. I'm also going to give it some micronutrients in the form of chelated iron, chelated manganese, chelated magnesium, stuff that trees need in very small amount. So I'm gonna give them some micronutrients as well, and I'll show you the importance of micronutrients in a little bit. So in addition to the nutrients here, which are the building blocks for trees, the whole idea behind photosynthesis, trees capturing sunlight, is to convert sunlight into energy, into sugar. So a tree cannot live off of just the nutrients alone. They need energy through photosynthesis. Now, you could also kind of over put that into overdrive as well by giving them sugar as well. Yeah, trees, they, in addition to absorbing nutrients, they also have no problem absorbing the additional sugar that you can give them. So this really just kind of gives them a boost, particularly with younger trees. They would benefit a lot just because the younger trees are generally in the shade, and they have heck of a time trying to get the sunlight. So this gives them the sugar, the energy that's needed. So yeah, that's in my particular case, molasses works. So I'm just gonna dump everything in here. These are, I've been using it, so it's not much in here. And for the amount, I really just eyeball. I mean, it depends on what you're using, but I simply just eyeball it. I guess it really depends on how stinky you want your yard to be. And one consideration, okay, when foliar feeding, your house is gonna smell. It's gonna smell like a fish farm. And just be mindful of your neighbors. So really, that's the only limitation for me. Is I mean, if you know, if I can, I mean, I definitely would foliar feed my trees every single day. But then I don't think my neighbors would like it too much with the whole neighborhood smelling like the way it will. So, well, before I do that, just shake it really quick. Whew. Yeah, it's it's intoxicating. But the trees love this stuff. There you go. That should do it. So those are the macronutrients. Micronutrients. Again, just eyeball it. That looks good. Now, the tree's energy source, sugar. I'm gonna go and just dump half of it in there. The thing with applying sugar to the foliage of the trees is there is also kind of an added benefit as well. In that, while it's pulling, I mean, it is pulling at the rate of a molasses. While it's pulling, one of the benefits of adding sugar to the tree, if you come here, is see all this food scrap, jackfruit. Okay, check it out. Bugs, mostly flies. This is intentional. I'm wanting to get flies to this particular mango tree just because when you look at the flowers, the flowers of mango trees are pollinated by flies. So I'm simply attracting the pollinators to this tree in hopes that they'll land on the flower and pollinate the flowers, which gives me the most fruits. So yeah, that's why I'm doing it. And when you apply molasses, it attracts all sorts of flies and bees to the trees. So I guess that's an added benefit. Okay. All right, that should do it. One suggestion: invest in a good backpack sprayer. I've just had great success with that particular brand, but just invest in a nice, comfortable one because, yeah, I mean, on average, it really does take me maybe an hour or so to really feed all my trees through foliar feeding. And yeah, this is a pretty comfortable and functional sprayer. Okay, so for purpose of demonstration, let me show you this. See these cherimoyas? Brand new growth on this tree. Same with the wax bamboo here. Brand new growth coming out. The application of foliar feeding really would greatly benefit the new growth, as well as existing foliage, of course. But yeah, I mean, as the new leaves are coming out, gives them like a nice quick shot of nutrient and energy. So put your spray on the finest. It almost should be almost like a mist. Put it on the finest spray setting, if possible. Literally, just spray the whole thing. Taking great, well, try to spray underneath the foliage as well, just because that's where the spermata are, the pores of the leaves are. So that's foliage waiting for you. Now, let me show you this. This is really where you get the biggest benefit when it comes to foliar feeding. It is the ability for you to correct any nutrient deficiencies in trees, in plants. Good example. This mostly happens in citrus and starfruits for some reason. But if you come here, actually, see the new growth? The leaves on the new growth? Here's a good example. Look at that. It's very veiny. This is classic sign of chlorosis, as in it is lacking iron, a critical mineral for trees, as well as you and I. But yeah, some of these citrus are lacking iron. So in that case, what I'm going to do is, in addition to foliar feeding it, because the micronutrients that I put in here has chelated iron, I'm also going to give these guys an application of simply straight up chelated iron in a liquid solution. This should help to address any iron deficiencies in the growing medium that's in the container. So let's eyeball it. Just be careful with the stuff. It can stain your shoes and clothes. Mix it in. Apply it as if you're watering the tree. This is essentially a liquid fertilizer solution. Sorry about that. All right, so yeah, again, just in addition to addressing the iron deficiency in the growing soil, growing medium, uh, this really is kind of a long-term solution when you're addressing it in the soil and the growing medium. The sprayer is kind of a short-term solution in the sense that I mean, I definitely can just address the chlorosis by spraying them. However, the new leaves that come out are still going to be corrosive or corrodic. So really, the more important thing for you to do is, if possible, is just address it in the soil. This is really the more natural method, whereby the spray method, this essentially addresses the chlorotic nature of the leaves. However, again, it's not going to address any that's going to be shooting out after I spray the tree. So that's foliar feeding for you. In my case, foliar feeding gives the trees a quick boost of nutrient as well as energy because of the molasses, the sugar, as well as allowing me kind of a quick and easy fix to addressing the uh, chlorotic nature of some of the new growth by the inclusion of the chelated iron. So, all right.